Hello, my name is Jim. This is my podcast, The Bloody Vegans. You're very welcome to it. Each week I'll be travelling ever deeper into the world of veganism, discovering along the way a multitude of viewpoints from the political and ethical to the practical. I'll be doing this through a series of conversations, each aiming to further illuminate my understanding and hopefully yours of all things plant-centric. And this week is no different. This week I'm chatting with Marlena Mrowiec. Marlena is a qualified doula these days, a vegan for 4 or 5 years, I think now, and is a big advocate of holistic treatments, herbal remedies, and ultimately going back to kind of traditional methods to look after our health. So, without further ado, here's a conversation between me and Marlena Mrowiec.
So veganism, I started with being vegetarian, and that was around 8 years ago. The main reason was changing my bad habits and my bad eating, and I was basically getting very ill, a lot. And every winter I used to take various amounts of antibiotics and all sorts of medicines. So I always suffered with sinusitis and all sorts of throat, chest infections and things like that. So after reading a bit more about natural remedies and more natural, healthier lifestyle, decided to quit all the meat, fish, and even eggs at that point. So I felt a bit better, and I started seeing some benefits. And a few months after that, one of my colleagues, who is a good friend of mine, once at work, we were just chatting, and she said to me that she's going vegan. And I was very curious about this, and I said, wow, this is sort of, I'm thinking it's a bit extreme, and how do you do it? So then she explained, and this is quite easy and things, because I said to her that, I'm still getting a bit ill, and I'm still not quite how I want to be. I'm changing my diet, changing my habits, and I decided to give it a go to see how it is. And once I completely quit dairy, which was in fact the worst for me, because that was really making me sick, all the inflammation it causes, and all my illnesses were basically because of that. So after a few months, I started feeling so much better, and I saw really, really the difference in my health, in my everyday energy levels. I really started seeing the difference in my energy levels, how it impacted my work. I felt much better, and I could quit all the medicines and things I used to take. And I totally switched to herbal, natural remedies, which I love. And now I know what works and what doesn't work for me. So I very rarely get ill. And if I need to take anything, I just usually go for my natural things and herbs. Also, another thing, I always loved animals. I originally come from Poland, and I grew up in a small village where everyone is, quite self-sustainable. So my grandparents used to grow fruit and veg, and have a few animals as well, cows and a few chickens for meat and things like that. So this was quite normal, to eat meat, and Poland is really big with eating meat, and they don't really see veganism. Now it's better. Veganism is growing there, but back in those days, no one even heard about anything like that. So eating meat was very, very natural. But and also another thing, always being surrounded by animals and thing. I never really was a big meat eater, if you know what I mean, even though we had all these things, and I was always more about fruit and veg. And even when I used to eat meat, I used to only eat chicken and fish mainly, the red meat, especially steaks or anything with blood. coming out of it, I just would not touch because it was just horrific for me. And slowly changing my lifestyle, even starting to exercise at some point, seeing all the benefits, and even after a while, my skin has improved. Skin, hair, everything. General, the overall looks, let's say, that was also beneficial for me going vegan. And then I also started being more interested in environmental factor, and I saw a lot of people who are more sort of going more eco, and people who got into more recycling, reusing, zero waste movement, and things like that, which is fascinating as well. And I adapted this sort of lifestyle as well. And I always try to reduce the waste and how to reuse, recycle, and not buy plastic, not buy unnecessary things. A bit of a minimalism as well. And gave up quite a lot of old habits, accumulating countless amounts of bags and shoes, clothes, so I can live without lots of things that before was quite impossible for me. So yeah, the whole life was pretty much impacted, by veganism and changing the approach to many things, and outlook. And also, after a while, some of my friends and colleagues have noticed that, I used to be always sick and things like that. They started asking, oh, you look so much better. I also lost a bit of weight, on the way. Quite a lot of people do going vegan because, once you eat a lot of junk and then you go vegan, you lose the unhealthy weight, let's say. They've noticed, and they asked me some questions, and I always explain that it's going vegan and going healthy rather than eating junk food and all the rubbish, let's say. So, and that also got the word spread, let's say, and some of my friends decided to give it a go, and some of them love it and never went back to eating meat, and also adapted their lifestyle in a similar way, and trying to change the world a little bit, let's say, by protecting animals and our environment.
And how about your family? When you mentioned coming from that culture of like small holdings, animals used as part of the tradition of food preparation, and you used what you had around you, what you grew, and the animals that you looked after. Were they quite taken aback by your change of heart? Did it take a bit of convincing to get on board?
Yes, it did. Some members of my family were already a little bit more, aware of impact, of meat and unhealthy eating. So they were very, on board and understanding. But some people really didn't understand the whole idea of going vegetarian, vegan, not eating, meat, dairy, and things like that, which is super traditional for Poland, and there's a lot of meat everywhere, pretty much. But after a while, especially with my mom, once I explained everything, how it works, what sort of impact it has, and even presenting some nice recipes, and every time I go back I cook a lot of good things, which you can fake it, use some fake meat and stuff like that, seitan and good alternatives, and everyone who tries it loves it, so now they are much more open and understanding, and they really, really support a lot of it. And some of them even ask, could you cook something for us, because, we cannot cook like that, and there's always some new recipe, and I always incorporate, huge amounts of fruit and veg and everything that's healthy and good into the meals.
Were you always, keen on cooking? Were you always a bit of a talented chef in the kitchen, or would you say going vegan has kind of encouraged that in you?
Well, when I was very young, when I first came to this country, I was still 19, so I couldn't cook much, I always helped my mom with cooking and preparing food, but I was not really good at it myself. And then, after a while, and especially after going vegetarian and vegan, looking for these good recipes and alternatives to meat and how to make food healthier and better for us, I really started just Googling, recipes, asking my friends, for some recipes. And I always tried, just experimented. The more I experimented, the more I loved it, and the more I couldn't get enough of it. I even baked. I had a period of my time when I baked for months, every weekend there was a cake. But then it's a bit dangerous, you see, to eat cake all the time. Because they always turned out delicious. So it was disappearing too fast, you see. Just bit of a self-learner and experimenting, even though when I still try some new recipes that I can sometimes find in my vegan cooking books or someone recommends, I very often modify them. I add my personal little touch, or I make something extra on the side to it, just to make it more interesting and always look after good presentation of the food. I love when food looks beautiful, and try to make them very presentable, so it tastes even better then.
I don't know about you, but I'd always find, particularly when I'm cooking for my sort of omnivorous friends or family, that there's always an extra pressure on it. You always want to make sure that it's incredible, so that there is an element of them kind of having their expectations shocked a little bit, because their expectations usually that vegan food's not going to be great and so on. So I don't know about you, do you find the same sort of thing, that there's an extra pressure on it?
Yes, always. Some people just, as we know, say the vegans only eat grass and lettuce and and boring vegetables. And they are very often surprised. Like I say, sometimes, it is very hard, and I'm trying to impress with making something taste like, you want them to taste it like meat, let's say. But it's not always that. Sometimes if it doesn't taste like meat, but it tastes of something different, it is even better. And a lot of my friends are usually happy with what I cook. I haven't had any complaints yet on my family, so that's quite good. But sometimes it's hard. It is hard.
100%. I'm interested in this bit you mentioned earlier. The sort of the winter effects, the kind of chronic conditions that keep coming back. What was the sort of period of time between you stopping eating dairy, particularly because you mentioned that was a bit of a tipping point, and these symptoms kind of disappearing? Was it a pretty quick transition, a very noticeable one, or did it take some time?
It took a few months, I would say, maybe 3 to 6 months, I would say. I remember my first time I got ill after just completely quitting dairy. It was around this autumny, wintry period when it just starts to get cold and everyone at work has got runny nose, sore throats, one after another, So then I got it, and it was quite bad, but of course I decided to stop, taking antibiotics. I said to myself, I don't want to keep taking antibiotics for the rest of my life. So this is the point where I'm changing my diet and stopping it completely. So that was the time when I really suffered the very first time, because I just decided to go with nothing, just natural remedies, something like ginger, lemon, teas, echinacea tinctures and tablets, which are really, really good. I suffered a lot, and it was a bit long, maybe took a week or two to clear. But then next time, after maybe another 2 or 3 months, I got some sort of a cold, but it was so much so much less. The symptoms were milder, and I didn't suffer as much. It didn't go as bad as it usually went, because usually within a couple of days, 2-3 days, I used to get straight away, sore throat, sinusitis, and chest infection. 2-3 days, I couldn't get out of bed, and this never happened after that. One first illness that I got after going vegan. That was my body just, in a way, I think my body was more detoxing still, and sort of getting rid of probably what was still there. Because that's another part. Our body detoxes for quite a while as well from all this bad stuff we've been, eating for many years, right? Because all the meat, as we know, the meat and dairy has so much hormones, antibiotics, even steroids in it. And it is somewhere in our bodies, by the time it clears, it might take even, a few years for some. So, yeah.
Given that health was such a driver for you in that those first few moves that you made to switch to veganism, was there, an emphasis on whole foods, plant-based diet particularly, as opposed to, perhaps the more processed kind of vegan alternatives, etc.? And is that something, if that was the case, have you kind of sustained that, or, generally speaking, do you allow a bit more balance in now?
Yes, it was much more whole foods balanced, like you say. I just wanted to be as good, as clean. Everything I was buying was organic. I still do as much as I can. No pesticides, nothing like that. I even went gluten-free for a long while. Just to avoid anything bad. And it really, really had a good effect, and I've seen so much more improvement and difference. But after a while, of course, my diet now is much more balanced. I allow myself, alternatives of meat, and sometimes, I even eat junk food. Like others, we every now and again, it's allowed. It's okay to, have a pizza. I love vegan burgers, hot dogs, things like that. There's so many delicious alternatives that just taste so good that it's just hard to resist sometimes. And I love sweet stuff too, and I allow myself that too. An odd glass of wine there or there, there's nothing wrong with that. And especially if there is something to celebrate and there's a nice party, that you can provide all the vegan food for friends, and they always love it, because the vegan food tend to disappear first, during the parties and barbecues, which is a good thing after all. Yeah, of course, much more balanced now. But I still go as healthy as I can, especially during winter when, and during pandemic now, as we know. Just to stay as healthy as we can. Yeah, absolutely. Have you found yourself, since particularly in the last, what's almost a year now with the pandemic, etc., has that kind of, in your mind, kind of helped you refocus a little bit on the whole foods, plant-based elements, and the, making sure that you've built your immune system, strongly? Is that something that's sort of entered your mind in this period? Given the history of having these kind of illnesses over winters and so on? Yes, definitely, hugely. I remember when the lockdown started. I was working up till the 20th, and I remember just before that, when all the bad news were coming from around the world, and my country has shut the borders much earlier and everything else, I went to Neil's Yard, at Covent Garden, and because they are amazing. They have all the herbs and all the tinctures and all the homeopathy, you name it. They have all the natural remedies. So I went there and I stocked up really well on the things that I usually use and help me if I get ill or if I get cold. So I definitely prepared myself before that. But also, yes, the diet, again, the food that I cook, even upping the fruit and veg even more than normally, and making sure I take supplements as well, because I do, the good ones especially, the quite good quality ones, and the ones that cover our, B12 and especially now vitamin D, definitely.
Be good to get into this, your interest in holistic medicines, herbal remedies, etc. Where did that original interest come from? And how have you grown your knowledge over the course of time? What's the sort of source that you've ended up going to find out more?
It was in the beginning, when I went vegetarian and I reduced the meat. I started to look up more alternative ways, how to cure certain problems. So, sinusitis, my sore throat, chest infections. So after reading, as much as I could online, I had a couple of old-fashioned books from Poland, about these sort of natural ways, which is still quite big and quite good and well recognized in my country, especially, from the place where I come. It's little village where a lot of natural, holistic, old ladies who were, using these magical ways to cure your colds and fevers when you were a child. I started reading about this and even asking my mum, what did she use for something when I was a child, when I was ill, and other things, and going back to these ancestral traditions and the ways that they used to do, the ways they used to incorporate in their lives, and special traditions, special methods, and special rituals. It's really, really interesting, the whole subject of it. And I decided to try some of those, and I also started reading about other countries' traditions and the remedies they use and the herbs, and I got really, really into it. I bought loads of books about it. I was reading them all, and of course I was experimenting on myself, as you can imagine. So a lot of things I tried and tested, even making my own natural cosmetics and balms and things like that. Even homemade soaps at some point, you name it. I tried and experimented with a lot of things. But yeah, natural remedies is something that I am very passionate about, and I have quite a good knowledge by now. And sometimes some of my friends ask me, "Oh, what can I take for this? Oh, I just fell. I've got this bad knee." And so I usually say, you can take some arnica and put some nice arnica cream on it, or some other things sometimes. But yeah, this is something that definitely has helped me and has cured my illnesses, if you can call it, my ailments that I had. And I think that we, in a way, should really even talk about things like that a bit more, and going back to these traditions, because they worked in the past. People didn't have as many medicines like now, and of course medicines are amazing because they help with many things, and the medicine is just brilliant now. But some of them, as you know, antibiotics, they cure one thing, but they destroy so much stuff in our bodies at the same time, and our gut is not good for the gut, and things like that. So as much as we can, and of course if we don't have any underlying health conditions that, of course, sometimes herbs cannot be used with those. If someone is already on certain medication for something, that's another thing to always look at too, and always ask the doctor or special naturopath or herbal remedy people who dispense those stuff and prescribe. It's always good to contact them and confirm if we are okay to use it. Like I said, I was self-experimenting on myself, and I just know what works for me. And sometimes I can also give good advice and help, but of course everything should really be consulted with the doctor if we go for advices.
I'm interested in that, like, disconnect between, you know, the traditional ways and sort of modern living. You know, the idea of, you know, your childhood with that small holdings, growing your own fruit and veg, etc., remedies that were passed down from generations and so on. What do you think has driven this? I guess, like, desire to medicate everything chemically, you know, because I do see it sort of in, you know, typical Western culture in 2020, 2021. We seem obsessed with chemically medicating things, and like you say, there are many use cases where that's the right thing to do and so on, and but it does appear overkill. What do you think is sort of driving that? Is it, you know, purely a profit motive from, you know, large pharmaceuticals, or, you know, where do you think it comes from?
I think the more pressure, you know, and more, I don't know, people trying to get a quick fix, as you know. People trying to quickly heal something that sometimes needs more time. So there we have pharmaceutical concerns who produce drugs who are amazing. They quickly fix the problem. They can even, there are even brain enhancing drugs and super duper things that really help people with how they perform and things like that. Yes, it's brilliant, but in a way, yes, people make loads of money on it, on those quick fixes, but we also forget how important those natural ways and remedies are. And sometimes this quick fix can help, but it also can damage some other parts, you know, of your body or of your system, because there is always some side effect, and every drug, even paracetamol, comes with the leaflet of side effects that it could cause. So yeah, I do think the pharmaceutical concerns, they do earn a lot, and they have brilliant marketing. They have brilliant distributors who always, you know, go to places and try to sell as much as they can, of course. Where maybe some of these traditional natural remedies don't have that, and maybe because you can't make as much money on it, maybe because it's just cheap growing these herbs and doesn't bring so much profit.
Based on your experience of, you know, holistic medicines, herbal treatments, etc., you know, and particularly given the time we're in, and, you know, people really focusing in on their kind of health, their wellness, their immune systems, etc., what kind of things would you recommend that people look at as potential supplements or indeed remedies to support their wellness at this particularly critical time?
Okay, I would definitely recommend various antioxidants, sources of vitamin C, sources of vitamin D, and I would recommend something that I personally use for myself, and it's great to build and strengthen your immune system. It's something like a little treatment for maybe a week or two, and this always works for me, and this is very safe for many people, and it works for everyone who I recommended it to. It's echinacea. It's a beautiful plant that has so many amazing properties, and it can really strengthen our immune system. It's antiviral, antibacterial, and I usually buy a tincture, which means the plant is concentrated in the alcohol, and it's very potent and powerful. So you only need about small teaspoon of it in a small glass of water. You can also mix it with the juice because it does have a bit of a strong, taste. And drink this every day for a week or two, and that really, really helps to build your immune system stronger and helps to fight all the cold and flu symptoms. When I sometimes feel a bit fluish, there are days when, you wake up and feel a bit of a runny nose, maybe a bit of a sore throat, you feel like, there might be something coming. I always go for a big little, not little big, for a little shot of echinacea. So I usually take a small glass of water, add a teaspoon of that, and drink it. I also like to have ginger lemon teas. So this is very popular as well with times where we suffer sore throat and colds and flus. I usually make a ginger in the way of juicing it. I have a cold press juicer at home, which is quite amazing. So I am a big fan of ginger shots. I take them in the morning, and it's a really good start of the day and really energizes you. It gives you a nice kick, but it's amazing for our immune system, and it always, works. Again, it's antiviral, antibacterial, and really, really helps. So lemon ginger, you could even, if you don't like a strong, big dose of ginger, make a tea, just slice, a little bit of ginger, or you can grate it with maybe a bit of lemon. You can squeeze some lemon juice or a couple of slices of lemon in a cup or a little pot, add some hot water, and just sip this through the day. It really, really helps. And I know there are people who like ginger and don't like ginger. So for people who don't like ginger, cinnamon and clove, aniseed, a tea would be great as well. That also has lots of antiviral, antibacterial properties. And I sometimes do this, let's say, a hot toddy style tea. I would put, cinnamon sticks, aniseed, sometimes even cardamom, a few cloves, and I would usually slice orange with that. And again, hot water if you like it sweet. You can add vegan honey or agave syrup, something to sweeten, whichever favorite sweetener it is. You may add to that, and the same with lemon and ginger tea. You can add something sweet to make it more pleasant. People usually drink this honey lemon ginger tea, so if you have vegan honey, which there is a few good alternatives now, you can add that. And this is brilliant. But again, going back to fruit and veg, all the sources of vitamin C, vitamin D, antioxidants, all the various, berries, they're all brilliant antioxidants. They are great for smoothies, for desserts, for all sorts of even toppings on your porridge and things like that. They are brilliant. Vitamin C in so many beautiful citrus fruit, but as well peppers and many veg. Spinach is fantastic for us. It has so many beautiful nutrients. Vitamin D, mushrooms are full of vitamin D. So I know a lot of vegans usually incorporate mushrooms into their diets because in some way it does have this rich meat-like texture or even the flavor, and there are some amazing mushrooms. You can buy some dried mushrooms, and I usually buy them in in Italian shop or sometimes even in the Polish shop. We use the wild forest mushrooms. They are beautiful and they are so good for us, and they have a more rich flavor. So adding them to your soups or stews, or even to your pastas works, and they really, really improve the taste and are full of goodness. Yeah, and I forgot one. Yeah, all the green leafy vegetables, I mentioned spinach, but all the green leafy vegetables, they are so good for us, they are full of nutrients, you have calcium in them, you even have vitamin C in them, you have iron in them, you have just, you name it, they have so much, and they are so good for us. And I am a big fan of all fruit and veg. I don't dislike any, and I really, really like to change things around. So it's not just are you eating spinach the whole week, or you're eating parsnips the whole week. People should experiment. Try and incorporate different veggies to different various dishes, and just try and use as much as they can, in their meals. Yeah, and herbs and various spices, that's so amazing. Once you start experimenting with those and adding them to your meals, you can really, really change the flavor, the texture, the variety. It's just beautiful, and we should use them. They're such a great gift from our nature, and growing them is so easy. You can have them on your windowsill in a little pot, or even grow them at home. They grow indoors too, and you can just pick them up whenever. A little bit of parsley, or I even have fresh oregano, the basil, mint, little home herb patch.
What an incredible selection there, Marlena. I'm just bowled over with the knowledge, and I think the thing that really kind of strikes me when you're talking there about all these amazing things that sort of exist within the natural world is just that nature provides, I suppose, ultimately, that we go to great pains to synthesize what often exists within our surrounds, or at least within the wider natural world. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, nature provides us with everything, really. And there are things like a lot of people is starting to recognize those more. People just call them weeds. And have you seen dandelion before? The dandelion leaves, they grow anywhere and everywhere, but dandelion is just so nutritious for us. It's got similar nutritional values as spinach and all the green leafy vegetables. I once attended a 2-day food immersion presented and organized by Wild Food Cafe. I don't know if you heard about them. They are in London. They had 2 restaurants. Unfortunately, they had to shut them because of pandemics. But the founders and the owners are friends of mine. They are fantastic, and they know so much. And I learned from them too. So I attended the workshop of vegan cooking and how to use more nutritious and natural foods in your diet, and I learned about dandelion from them, and we were making dandelion smoothies to use them instead of your greens. They are fantastic, and they taste just as good as spinach. And it's so good for us, and this you can find for free somewhere in the fields. Of course, it has to be away from the roads and from places that are exposed to pollution. So don't pick up any dandelion near the main road somewhere where cars are. Just in case, you are one day in the beautiful nature somewhere in the fields, you can pick up dandelion leaves and use them for your smoothies. You can make a pesto out of it. And use them in many ways, really. And the same with nettles. We can use nettles. We can just, to de-sting them, we can just pour a bit of hot water on them and they won't sting anymore. And I had a nettle smoothie too, and I had nettle pesto, which was just so good. And this is super nutritious food, and it's just natural, and that is forgotten. People just think it's weeds and no one cares about this. Even in Poland, we make this. One of my aunties, she always gifts this to me when I go. She makes like a syrup type, a remedy that is used for colds and sore throats and chest infections. It's made of dandelion flowers. They are yellow fluffy flowers, so they basically collect them and they put loads of sugar on them, and then it sort of, they macerate them, and it really transfers all the properties and all the flavor and all the goodness onto this syrup, and they make the remedy out of it, you see. And this has been done for many generations now, and it's one of these natural remedies that I now go back to as well. And you can add a big spoon of that to your tea or hot water, or use it as a sweetener because it is quite sweet, but it has this very nice flavor. It even tastes a little bit like honey. So one of my friends who have a vegan restaurant in Poland, they even produce their own, and they call it a vegan honey based on the dandelion flowers, which is quite amazing. Yeah, there's just so many things.
That's also, Marlena, we've come to the end of our time. We're on about 3/4 of an hour now. We've been having a chat. It's been lovely.
Wow.
But it's like I say, it's truly, it's sort of an inspiring wake up call, I think, to chat to you about kind of all things natural, and sort of whether it be remedies or just, you know, how to get more variety into our foods. And it's definitely reminded me of a trip to, I think, Wild Food Cafe is the one in Neal's Yard, right? Is that the one? Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
so I remember going there. It must have, well, obviously it was over a year ago, pre-pandemic, and having the same feeling as this conversation, actually, thinking this is an incredible way to eat, and this is how I need to incorporate more of this into my diet. So love that. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.